Hello, guys and gals, and welcome. I was looking on the Diablo II Resurrected launch page, eagerly awaiting Diablo II Resurrected, and I came across a news article which I guess I had missed. So this one is about how we're making Diablo II Resurrected more accessible to everyone. And it's a pretty long article, and they go over a lot of interesting stuff. So I figured what we'll do is I'm going to read it here, and then after I read it, we're going to talk about what they're trying to get across to us and discuss it. The journey to resurrecting Diablo 2 as the modern incarnation, releasing this September, has been a challenging and rewarding endeavor. One of Blizzard's priorities is to always look for ways to iterate and improve the entertainment experiences we create for our players. That can't be better demonstrated than by our efforts on Diablo II Resurrected. Visually, the remastered aesthetic brings the classic game into stunning high resolution to take advantage of the latest hardware, but we also wanted to identify ways to provide a smoother and more accessible gameplay experience to as many people as possible. To illustrate the D2R team's philosophy around making the Burning Hills a more welcoming destination for everyone, we invited design and UX accessibility lead Drew McCrory to share his insights. The philosophy. So when we first sat down with the intent of modernizing one of the most beloved ARPGs of all time, we knew there was work to do from all angles. The game is over 20 years old, and the long-time Diablo 2 community is ravenous and heavily entrenched in decades of eccentricities and quirks. Our team includes many D2 purists who have thousands upon thousands of hours in the game before working on it professionally, and our goal is not to break what isn't broken. One thing we agree on is that it doesn't matter how pretty the grass is if you can't see the legendary staff on the ground. It ultimately sabotages the core gameplay experience. Accessibility is one major area of opportunity for this remaster to shine, and our intention to bring games to more players has evolved and is more refined now more than ever. Quality of life opportunities. We had early wins with the accessibility improvements like auto gold pickup, larger font sizes, UI scaling on Windows, PC, and options like gamma and contrast settings to enhance readability. But we knew that there were even more opportunities to improve accessibility to further enhance the gameplay of Diablo 2 for many of our current and potential future players. Let's take auto gold pickup as an example. Our initial inspiration for this feature's implementation was for controller players to not need to click as much, but we were pleasantly surprised to see mouse and keyboard players with limited mobility in their hands really enjoy this feature during the technical alpha. If a player with a disability or a hand injury was looting in Diablo 2 Resurrected, this option could alleviate physical stress without compromising the core gameplay experience. While we implemented this option with one type of player in mind, we ended up benefiting countless of other players by giving them a quality of life option they can choose to enable when they configure their personal Diablo 2 experience. This exhibits the solve for one, extend to many principle, leading to a greater impact throughout the player community. One fascinating issue we diagnosed early was that players weren't getting the right level of feedback for when they were missing enemies in melee. That's definitely a big one. When you dive into how Diablo 2 works, it's rolling dice on the back end, and it's a role-playing game, first and foremost. You could be right on top of a monster, and your sword might animate through that target as though a strike landed, but in actuality your stats rolled poorly, so the attack was a whiff. That's a sound system. The problem was the game wasn't telling players what happened loud enough. Do you know what that looks like in a modern game? A bug. Miss. Okay, so they got like little miss animations. That's kind of cool. I actually would like to see the actual word miss, because there are a lot of times in Diablo 2 where you don't actually miss. So we added an option to enable miss text. It's a small thing, purists don't need it, but what it does is provide a level of feedback to players who don't know how all the inner systems are working, and reinforces the RPG element of our game. Another key piece of accessibility is key bindings. Allowing players to set their station fully is critical. Our control scheme for controllers allows for heavy amounts of modification, and we support a long list of bindable actions for the mouse and keyboard. We provide 12 bindable keys and allow all actions/skills to be assigned in any way the player desires. To support this, we've even created new bindable neutral skills like interact, allowing for complete customization. Diablo 2 is primarily a game about picking up and holding items and persistently clicking. We know that prolonged holds and repetitive actions could be a significant barrier for some players, so we've added a quality of life feature to help mitigate the fatigue caused by many of these actions. For example, now players can toggle actions such as viewing items on the ground to be clicked on versus hold. That's an interesting one. I don't know, I wouldn't want to see the items all the time, but I could see it as a toggle, like Alt toggle and then Alt toggle it off. That would be kind of nice, as opposed to holding it. This improvement prevents the need to keep pressure on a button for a prolonged period of time. After technical alpha, this change alone is a massive win to users who shared their testing feedback, and we're happy we were able to hit it. We also allow many controller abilities to continuously trigger if the button is held down for players who can't repeatedly tap buttons quickly. So this is a screenshot here. And it has item label display, auto gold pickup, auto putter invite, default key bindings, show item tooltip button prompts, show life orb text, show mana orb text, show ammo count on skills, show clock, show chat gem mode. Interesting. This improvement prevents the need to keep pressure on a button for a prolonged period of time. So I can kind of understand that. Audio accessibility. Getting the most out of audio is also a critical second channel piece of feedback for players in Diablo 2. With the number of audio cues going on, we felt we should allow players to manually augment their sound channels, culling what they don't think is essential and enhancing what they prefer. In the option menu, players can adjust the volume of a multitude of audio channels. These sliders allow you to adjust the audio levels of voices, UI cues, footsteps, monster hit impacts, weapon noises, ambient objects, combat gore, and so much more. Interesting. I actually remember in World of Tanks and also in Lord of the Rings Online, there was something similar to that, and you would go through and specifically edit the sounds that you wanted to hear. And that was actually very useful. With the options we provide, we hope players attune their audio to their playstyle, including situational accessibility needs. Perhaps if you're streaming or your baby is asleep in the other room, you can now enable or disable audio to ensure you're getting the proper feedback at the level you want. We have more optional accessibility features beyond what I've highlighted above in the works for players to enhance their experience at their discretion. We'll continue to remain focused on how to take a true classic and modernize its accessibility for all players. Our team has the most fun when everyone is having fun, and we'll do our best to enable as many players as possible to play Diablo II Resurrected. That's Drew McCrory, Design UX/Accessibility Lead. As Drew noted, we'll continue to look for feedback that points to ways we can make our game more accessible. Our teams have previously sought feedback from a variety of players, including those with disabilities, to make Diablo II Resurrected as accessible as possible. Between text-to-speech and screen reader support, or adding controller configurations to allow players who play predominantly with one hand to swap their analog stick controls interchangeably. As a community, we'll continue to evaluate areas to improve. We are grateful for these players for identifying challenges that would hinder their experience or make the game less enjoyable, and several of the options highlighted above were inspired by and implemented because of their valuable insights. Ultimately, Diablo II Resurrected has been a labor of love, refitted by passionate fans who fondly remember the original, who are eager to build more lifelong memories with the new generation. We want everyone, from experienced veterans to new players, and regardless of platform or ability, to enjoy the timeless experience that is Diablo 2. If you would like to participate in these playtests and studies, members of our community can sign up on the Blizzard research site. We are always seeking unique perspectives to help us improve players' experience in our games. For more updates on Diablo II Resurrected, be sure to stay dialed in on all our channels. Please share your impressions on the Diablo 2 official forums or Diablo subreddit. And if you want to learn more about Diablo II Resurrected, check out our website here, or for real-time updates, follow our official Twitter @Diablo. Thank you. So, it's very interesting. They have a lot of interesting things here. First they start talking about auto gold pickup, which is a fairly innocuous change, and then they go into things like the ability to hold down a button as opposed to clicking it repeatedly. The miss thing here, which I think is going to be a big deal because, believe it or not, there are a lot of characters in the game that have problems with hitting targets that don't have to do with accuracy. So I think it's at least very important to relay to the newer players and maybe even the returning players, that when you're attacking a target, you're not always hitting the target. So the miss icon will show you that at least you did complete a successful attack, but the attack missed. Whereas there are times where you do not complete a successful attack and your character still displays that he's completing an attack anyway. And I'm assuming in those situations no miss icon will appear because the attack never actually completed. And I don't know, it's interesting. This whole thing, like many controller abilities to continuously trigger if the button is held down. So basically, you're going to have a lot of various skills that require you to click them repeatedly. That you can just hold down the button and it will just keep using them over and over again. So Diablo 2 has always been one of those games that kills mice. It's a mouse killer. Because you literally click so much and so often, and you hold down the mouse so much and so often that like you're just so abusive to the mice that they just die. So that's an interesting thing. That might actually save a couple mice here and there. It's definitely going to change things, though. I'll tell you what. When people get in and they realize they can do things like toggle Alt or leave the Alt key on so you can see all the items on the ground. Auto gold pickup is going to change a lot because people are going to have more gold in their inventory. There's a lot of gold that people just walk by. They don't pick it up, so they just walk on by, especially in the cow level where there's just gold everywhere, and people just don't even bother to pick up the gold because there's just so much stuff all over the place, and that's going to be interesting. They're talking about adding new accessibility features. They're very excited about like getting people to play who only have one hand. They talk about that several times, so that's very interesting. One-handed Diablo play. I mean, you really can kind of play with one hand on your mouse hand. I mean, it's a little slow, and you can click all the buttons. And if you have lots of buttons on the mouse, you can actually pretty much play one-handed. You don't necessarily need your other hand for anything. I played one-handed a lot, so I mean I could totally see Diablo being a one-handed game if they specifically set it up for it. Um, they talk about a lot of things in here though. They're talking about like accessibility features like text to speech, screen reader. So that screen reader would indicate somebody who can't see because you don't need something to read the screen to you if you can see. Um, or maybe you're visually impaired to the point where you can't read, so you have the basically an application. I've seen these before where they just read to you what's on the screen, and you can I guess you can set them up in various ways. Not to read everything that's on the screen, but and then text to speech options is kind of interesting. I'm not really too thrilled about that, but I mean, I guess there are certain people who would need text to speech options. I could see that. Um, they talk about this Diablo Blizzard research site, and I have no clue what this is. Who are we? We are Blizzard's research team. We are a curious and inquisitive bunch of game lovers, and we've dedicated our career to giving objective voice to our players from around the world. We come from a diverse background, but are united in our vision to hear and learn from our players' experiences. Your honest and candid feedback is our path to identifying problems in the experience of our games. Every voice we hear is an opportunity to make the gaming experience better. I have no clue about this. I'm gonna hit the button to hop in and see what it is. Oh, apparently it's surveys. Well, I'm gonna have to bookmark this. Available surveys. Do they have a survey on Diablo 2 Resurrected? Game preference and experience. Identifying individuals who are able to participate in playtests. It seems highly technical. Like it's not something that you just go in and give your feedback. It sounds more like Blizzard gives you a survey and then you answer the survey and then Blizzard takes your survey and then rolls with it, one way or the other. I have seen quite a few comments, by the way, from developers and people in the Blizzard community saying that they do actually read and everything basically on the Diablo 2 forums and the Diablo subreddit. So if you want to go over there and you want to fight for the right to party in the Diablo 2 forums and speak your piece, it's definitely somewhere that I think you'll actually be heard, so to speak. And it's interesting here, one of these comments that they made. Our team includes many D2 purists who have thousands upon thousands of hours in the game before working on it professionally, and our goal is to not break what isn't broken, which is a very interesting comment there. They're basically saying that they specifically hired people who were in the Diablo 2 community for many, 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 many hours. And they even talk about us like we're some sort of like crazy people. Like the game is over 20 years old, and the longtime Diablo 2 community is ravenous and heavily entrenched in decades of eccentricities and quirks. Like they have they're calling us out right now. They're like you guys are nuts, but you're the good kind of nuts, and we're gonna make sure that that the squirrel doesn't throw you away. Uh, it's just funny. This comment here also kind of stuck out at me. One thing we agree on is that it doesn't matter how pretty the grass is if you can't see the legendary staff on the ground. It ultimately sabotages the core gameplay experience. So they're talking about the loot. Like Diablo 2 is definitely a loot-based game. I would call it one of the best loot-based games that ever existed. So yeah, I mean there is a certain like just amazingness to like when that unique item drops and you see it there and then you press the alt key and then you see that unique color and it just looks so awesome. You know what would be really cool though is if they changed the items that when they dropped on the ground that the unique items actually looked like unique items as opposed to just everyday average ordinary item. I mean, we got a lot of little changes here, a lot of interesting little tidbits. It's definitely something to think about as we go further, so into the future, because they're talking about accessibility, and accessibility is making sure that people that are deaf can play, that people that are blind can play, that people who only have one hand can play, that people who have disabilities in their hands, like issues with clicking the buttons over and over again or holding down a button for a prolonged period of time can play. And that's actually really admirable because that kind of thing, when you have more and more people in the game, when you have a larger community, I actually really enjoy that. I think that's going to be a good thing going forward. Just having more and more people in the game of varied backgrounds and varied disabilities even. In fact, you probably won't even know if they set this up properly. You probably won't even know they have a disability. They'll just be playing right alongside you, murdering demons, Baal and Diablo, and you'll never even know, which is a good thing. They also talk about this solve for one, extend to many principle, and this one kind of made me laugh because I was thinking about Star Trek. There was an episode of Star Trek where Geordi LaForge was trying to help out these people who were going to be smashed by a stellar fragment of a planet, and they were trying to figure out a way to increase the efficiency of the tractor beam, and it turned out that Geordi LaForge's visor was using a principle of like pulsed some sort of like pulsed thing so that it doesn't overwhelm his like optronic nerves or something. And apparently this technology was developed specifically for blind people, and it wasn't necessarily ever meant to be applied in the way that it was applied in the episode. And the whole entire point of this episode was that the people on this planet had actually been killing the like blind children and the deaf children because they felt that they were genetically impure or whatever. And so they never had developed this technology. And Geordie the Forge took great irony in the fact that a technology that never would have existed in their world is the one that was saving them, essentially. And I thought that was very interesting. And it made me think of it because, when you think of solve for one, extend to many, it was something that was solved for Geordie. It was for the blind people of the Star Trek universe. And that principle of not overwhelming his optronic, nerve endings also, in effect, applied to saving the people from, with the tractor beam, which I thought was really interesting. And it's true, when you solve one thing for one person, as they're talking about, like when you make a change, you inevitably and invariably will help out other people who may have similar issues. So that's very interesting there. I'm very curious about this right here with the mist melee. So I think they're going to go even further than this. It might be interesting to see if they put damage numbers up, misses, evades, dodges, blocks, all that stuff. It would be very interesting to see those notifications up on the screen. Obviously, some people might want to toggle them off because I can imagine it could be kind of a mess, as it were. But I like it. I've always liked the little pop-ups that show you whether you hit, you miss, whether you whether you block, whether you evade, dodge, whatever it is. I love to see those things because I feel like they validate your character at that particular moment. So if you go into an area and you're unsure of how well you're going to do in that area, you don't really know like what what you're going to be capable of. You see these little indicators, you see you're missing over and over again, then you need to go back and refine your build a little bit. If you see like block indicators all the time, your block chance is high enough. If you see you're hitting, your numbers are popping up and you're seeing that you're actually dishing out damage, but the monster's health isn't going down, you need to beef up your damage, or something else is wrong. If you're fighting like a physical immune monster and you're attacking the monster, seeing those 0 numbers pop up or those really low numbers, like maybe just your elemental damage, would definitely be extremely helpful. So that's very interesting. I'm gonna be excited to see what level of feedback, like word feedback like that they add, because I want to see it all. And I would hope that it would be customizable, though, because I know everybody doesn't want to see all those things pop up at one time. And this is interesting here, too, where they talk about accessibility in key bindings. Allowing players to set their station is fully critical. Our control scheme for controllers allows for heavy amounts of modification, and we support a long list of bindable actions for the mouse and keyboard. We provide 12 bindable keys and allow all actions/skills to be assigned in any way the player desires. To support this, we've even created new bindable neutral skills like interact, allowing for complete customization. So one of the issues with Diablo 2 was you couldn't really bind everything just exactly the way you wanted. So I'm actually pretty excited for that. I'm really hoping that they also fix some of the skills that could be bound to the left click that never were. I understand, and don't get me wrong, I understand very well that there are certain skills that can never be bound to the left click because they are things like auras or skills that should never be over there on the left side. But there are certain skills in the game that should have always been allowed to be put on the left-hand side, and I don't know why they weren't. And that's something that I really hope that they fix. static field is one, as a big for instance. I would love to have static field on my left click. I don't understand why static field has to be on the right click. I feel like that's a skill that could definitely be a left click skill. This auto accessibility thing, this is actually really, really sweet. So in World of Tanks, I don't know if any of you guys have seen any of my World of Tanks videos, but I do play a lot of World of Tanks, and I have quite a few videos on that game. But in World of Tanks, there is a slider for basically every sound effect in the game. So like the engine, you know, how the tank is rolling across the ground, like the background music, the music in the lobby. You know, it has like literally every kind of music there, or sound effect, or any type of thing that you want, and you can fully customize. You know, like if the engine is too loud, you can bring down the engine a little bit. If the music is too loud, you can bring that down, or maybe you want the music louder. Maybe you want to turn the music off entirely. You can do that. So like you can go through and you could really just customize exactly which sounds you would like and which sounds you wouldn't, and keep those, you know, sounds that really, you know, make the game for you. And you will find, if you've never played a game like this that has a fully customizable sound system, it's amazing. Because you can go in here and you can really fine-tune exactly how you want the sounds to be. Especially if you're a streamer. So like if you're a streamer and, you know, some sounds are just overriding your voice, and you need to turn down certain things, it's going to be super helpful for streamers as well, like me. So that will be something that I'll take a look at when Diablo II Resurrected actually does come out, because, you know, I'll want to bring down certain sound effects, you know, so that you can still hear me while we're chatting about the game, because we're going to do a lot of chatting about Diablo II Resurrected. And I think that's pretty much it. You know, they're always looking for feedback. I'm not really sure how much more feedback they can get on Diablo II Resurrected, because I'm sure the forums are just like exploding with feedback. I hear there's a huge amount of people on there who just want things that are never going to happen, and yeah. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, and keep watching.